Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company on this Thursday morning, 20th day of February. Thanks for tuning in. Bright and early, dark and early in the nation's capital. We are live right now on Radio Row at CPAC 2025. And as usual, we're the first ones to go on the air in the entire nation. It's pretty exciting. Although I have to say there's a couple of other radio shows already setting up here and ready to go. So we won't be the only ones. If you come down to National Harbor, to CPAC, give yourself some time because there is Secret Service protocol in place right now because the very first speaker this morning will be Vice President J.D. Vance, and he will be interviewed by this morning's co-host, Mercedes Schlapp. So you can swing by, see us before that, and it'll be a blast. Also coming up this morning at 6:05, we'll talk to Kurt Schlichter, who's in town for the event. 6:35, the grand poobah of this whole thing, Matt Schlapp. 7:05, Dr. Robert Malone. He's going to walk around this place like the most vindicated man, well, maybe second most vindicated man in town. And 8:05, K2 McFarland will be our guest. Of course, I say second most vindicated man because on Saturday it was announced that Donald Trump, the 45th and 47th president of the United States, will indeed close things out here at CPAC. I mean, we all sort of figured that would happen, but, you know, you're trying to align a schedule up with the president of the United States. You don't want to leap to conclusions and assume that he'll be your final speaker. And Matt Schlapp with CPAC did, in fact, confirm that yesterday. I think it broke around noon that, yes, Donald Trump will close things out. So they're going to open things up with J.D. Vance today at 10 a.m., and then they're going to close things out with Donald Trump on Saturday. So if you plan on coming down here, I would be here for the whole event, frankly. And some of you are already here. It was a very funny thing yesterday. We're trying to get our credentials as we got down here the day before. You know, you want to get settled in. You want to get your media credentials. You want to get all your things so you can move about and get your security done. And Meredith and I walked over. It's like, I think it was Schlichter said, oh, you should go get your speaker credentials. They have the speaker credentials because we didn't have the media credentials set up yet. So Schlichter says, because he's been here for a while, he says, because he's been drinking. I mean, Schlichter's been, you know, all over this place. Every bartender in all of National Harbor recognizes Kurt Schlichter. Explain that to me. So Schlichter says, you can go up and get your speaker credentials. So Meredith and I go up to where they've been doing the speaker credentials for the last several years. We know where the room is. It's a special room set up like a ballroom, little mini ballroom, conference room. So we go up there, we open up the door, and it's full of like 30 or 40 CPAC volunteers who are just sitting around. It's not set up for credentials at all. Clearly, they've moved the credentials. They've set up a room to just sort of brief and train all of the volunteers for CPAC, who are going to be like, you know, acting as ushers and sort of guiding people around and helping with some security protocols and stuff like that. They're all wearing their red CPAC shirts. And we open up the door like we've interrupted some sort of session or something, and half the room all looks over and goes, Larry, is that Meredith? Clearly, it was all WMAL listeners. It was the WMAL family all down here in place, ready to go as volunteers. In fact, many of you may be on the road right now, heading over here, and I say good morning, and it's good to see you. But it was very funny to sort of have that impact, to realize this is, you know, it's so great for WMAL to be the local hometown talk radio station here in our little village of Washington, D.C., when all of the world has its eyes on this conference. I mean, I guess we're used to the whole world having their eyes on Washington, D.C., considering it's the most powerful city on the planet. But specific to conservative politics and conservative thought leaders, to know that every year we get to host this event in our town and be the radio station of record, it's pretty fun. It's pretty great. And I implore all of you, if you have never been to a CPAC, if you've always wanted to go to a CPAC, this is the one to go to. John Fredericks, radio talk show host extraordinaire, just delivered me a cup of coffee. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're not getting on the air. All right. That was very nice of him. This is the CPAC that you're going to want to go to. We talk about the vibe shift in this country, moving from the Biden administration to the Trump administration here, Trump 47. And as I mentioned before, the vindication that obviously Donald Trump has got to feel by being reelected so overwhelmingly in this 2024 presidential election, and then the momentum that he has brought into this administration with all of the astounding achievements already in delivering on his promises. There's just that vibe shift that we talk about all the time that you can sort of sense, not just in Washington, but across the spectrum in our nation. It's going to be amplified times 100 here at the CPAC conference. And the fact that they're kicking things off today at 10 a.m. with J.D. Vance is, I mean, he's just going to light this place up. Let me give you a rundown real fast on what it's going to look like today at CPAC. So if you're considering it, if you're thinking about it, I think you can still go online. You can still register and be in the room. I know you can, because they're still talking about what they're going to do for the overflow crowd for President Trump's speech on Saturday. So they're going to kick things off with J.D. Vance at 10 a.m., and that will, in fact, it's not going to be Vance giving a speech, a prepared speech. He's going to have basically a sit-down, back-and-forth conversation with our very own Mercedes Schlapp. So that's going to happen at 10 a.m. Then they're going to have a panel on crypto, Bitcoin, digital economy, which, you know, it's interesting. Bitcoin has sort of become this iconic conservative thing. I always knew that Bitcoin was very big in the libertarian circles. And, you know, the conservative movement does have a huge libertarian sort of wedge as part of the conservative ideals. But it's really sort of taken off, especially since Trump has sort of latched on to the digital economy kind of ethos. So they're going to do a big panel on that. We're going to Katie Pavlich and Congressman Comer are going to do a whole thing about the panel is called Republicans for Weaponization Control. In other words, how to keep the government from being weaponized in the future. And that's why James Comer, as chairman of the Oversight Committee, is going to be a big part of that. There's going to be a big session at 11:30 on Middle East peace and various conflicts from around the world, especially with the news headlines yesterday with President Trump making remarks about President Zelensky in Ukraine. That's going to be a major topic. That's why we're excited to talk to K.T. McFarland later this morning at 8:05. Then at 11:35, I'm excited to hear from Liz Truss. Now, you remember Liz Truss was the Prime Minister of England for a while. Not very long, though, but she was sort of the conservative heir apparent who was going to go in there and fix Brexit, and she lost the confidence of her party. I didn't really know much about her, but boy, she has emerged as this sort of iconic conservative figure in America and in England, and she's very well respected and loved here at CPAC, so I'm looking forward to that. Then Eduardo Verestughi. Is he, I'm trying to remember who he's, I know he's not the president of America, I think he used to be. I can't tell you. I'm not going to go through all the speeches, especially the people that I don't recognize. But I did want to highlight this one. At 12:20, there's going to be a panel. It's called Say Their Names, Israeli Hostages' Families Speak. After the horrific news that we got yesterday of that, of the children, the babies who were murdered by Hamas over in Israel, the fact that it's a conservative issue to stand up for Israel, to stand up for these hostages, to stand up for the horror that Hamas inflicted on these innocent, courageous human beings. The fact that this is now a conservative, exclusive issue tells you everything you need to know about where we are politically in America today. I'm shocked that Democrats are just fine with sort of ceding this moral high ground, but that's fine. You be you. We'd welcome them. I would welcome Democrats to have a conversation to highlight the horrors of Hamas, but they can't do it because of their political base. Well, conservatives are going to embrace this issue and have a major panel about with Israeli hostage families on the stage today. That's going to be an emotional one and a big one. We're only halfway through today's lineup. I'll give you some more in just a moment. First, though, it's 5:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives, Jamie Whitten is not held up by Secret Service like Mercedes Schlapp is. She's in the carpet cleaning traffic.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
All right, just a few more highlights from today's rundown. If you want to come down to CPAC, get down here. It's going to be great. And just a little bit, at 1:05, we're going to have a speech from Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire. The whole Daily Wire team is going to be down here. We got Michael Knowles here. Matt Walsh will be here. Ben Shapiro will be here. They're going to be doing their Daily Wire backstage thing that they do, their live stream to their Daily Wire Plus audience. Also, I would say Andrew Klavan will be here, but Andrew Klavan lives here. Do people know that? Andrew Klavan's actually a local D.C. guy, maybe listening right now. So he will cross the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and make it to National Harbor. What a commute he's got today. So you might want to see all of the Daily Wire people while you're down here, but Michael Knowles in particular will be giving a speech at 1:05. I love the name of this panel at 1:20. It's Culture Warriors, Take Your Truce and Shove It, including Penny Nance and Terry Schilling on that panel. And then things close out today. Congressman Jim Banks will be on the stage today. Speaker Mike Johnson will be on the stage today. Senator Rick Scott will be up there today. Nigel Farage is here from England. This is a huge day. They're then going to do Attorney General Pam Bondi will be on stage with Senator Ted Cruz for a back and forth. Ben Shapiro's delivering a speech at 5 o'clock, and then that's when the whole Daily Wire team will be up on stage at 5:10 to do a live Daily Wire backstage. So that's your first day, and it's a loaded one. So I do implore, we'd love to see you. We're right at the front of Radio Row. We're the first people you see as you come down the lane. We'll be live here. Vince Colonnese not only will be doing his show from 3 to 6, but he's also filling in for Dan Bongino today from noon to 3. So you want to come and bother Vince, I know I plan to, because he'll be on air for 6 hours. Man, that's a marathon. So make sure you get down here. Now, there's a couple of great items in the news that I wanted to share with you, including and especially some amazing work from the Washington Free Beacon on the latest revelation from the Department of Government Efficiency. That would be DOGE. The headline, DOGE finds $2 billion in taxpayer funds earmarked for Stacey Abrams-linked group. Now, everyone knows Stacey Abrams. She's the twice-elected governor of Georgia. Oh, no, that's right. She didn't win either time, but she claims she really won because of voter fraud. She's like the queen mother of election deniers, Stacey Abrams is. And, of course, when Stacey Abrams claims there was election fraud down in Georgia, she claimed it was because of the suppression of the black vote. So I guess that was championed and celebrated at all corners. She became a cause celeb. They even did a storyline on that new remake of Star Trek, whatever the latest one was, I forget what it was called, where they made her like the president of the galaxy or something. Well, I have no doubt that down in Georgia, some kind of aliens vote in certain elections, but I don't think they would even vote her as president of the galaxy. So Stacey Abrams becomes this big cause celeb. She's a hero. In fact, wasn't she going to run for president at one time? Here, this is how bad Stacey Abrams is. Joe Biden didn't pick her to be vice president. He picked Kamala Harris. Joe Biden thought that Kamala Harris was more competent than Stacey Abrams. That tells you everything you need to know about Stacey Abrams. But she worked the grift well. She loses a couple of elections. She goes on television as a martyr to the suppression of the black vote and Jim Crow on steroids. And she starts a couple of nonprofits, right? And, of course, most of the nonprofits or political action committees that she set up are all about, getting out the vote and making sure that black votes are counted. And, by the way, she did a great job because black turnout and black voting in Georgia has increased, not because of her efforts, but because the Republicans in Georgia have actually put through a bunch of voter safety and voter integrity laws. The laws that Joe Biden tried to boycott and called Jim Crow on steroids. The laws that made the Major League Baseball move the All-Star game out of Atlanta because they were told that these were racist laws. Well, those racist laws are the things that actually increased the black vote count in Georgia. Make it all make sense. Anyway, Stacey Abrams sets up those political action committees. So, okay, fine. Under Biden, she got $2 billion. Whatever. We're used to that kind of patronage. We're used to that kind of grift. We're used to that kind of bribery, right? Well, here's what you need to know about this latest discovery from DOGE, about the $2 billion that was given to Stacey Abrams and her group. It's not even about voter integrity. It's not even about getting out the vote. It's not about anything. It's an environmental group. Yeah. When you think Stacey Abrams, you immediately think, climate and the environment and saving the planet, right? Well, I guess since she was the president of the galaxy, maybe that sort of makes sense. But what planet is she really trying to save, right? $2 billion discovered by Lee Zeldin and the Environmental Protection Agency for Powered Forward Communities. This is a $2 billion grant coming out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. I don't know, maybe most of the money goes to Stacey Abrams to just keep her mouth shut, and that's how we reduce greenhouse gases. Makes as much sense as anything else. Power Forward Communities received the Green Energy Grant. Here's the best part. Despite the fact that it was founded just months earlier in late 2023 and never managed anywhere near the grant's dollar figure. They got a $2 billion grant, even though after only being formed a few months before, they had just reported a total of $100 in revenue. So think this through for a minute. You're Stacey Abrams. You start an environmental group. You report your first quarter earnings of $100, and then you're given a grant for $2 billion from the Biden administration. Oh, but there's nothing to see here. There's no waste. There's no fraud. It's just business as usual. 523.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
537 O'Connor and Company as we charge through our live broadcast here at CPAC. It's so funny when I always say we're live at CPAC because, spoiler alert, we're live every day. There's always a live show. It would be kind of useless if we were a taped show for your morning commute, but we are live on location, I guess, is the more accurate way to put it, in the somewhat bustling Radio Row here at CPAC, although it is a little more subdued than usual because there's Secret Service protocols in place. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, going to kick things off here at 10 a.m., so Secret Service already swarming all over the place. That's why Mercedes Schlapp, our co-host, is not yet here. She is still being frisked. Later on at 6:05, Kurt Schlichter will be here, God willing. 6:35, Matt Schlapp, the Grand Poobah of CPAC. 7:05, Dr. Robert Malone, or 8:05, K.T. McFarland. I'm Larry O'Connor. Come on down to CPAC if you can. It's going to be fun, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder, so I should enjoy the fact that I don't have to scream over the din here at the Gaylord in National Harbor. So I've got good news and bad news on the efforts to make the government more efficient and trim some of the fat over in some of the federal agencies. This one has to do with the Social Security Administration. Here's the good news. We actually found an individual that has been laid off from Social Security that all the resistors, all of the sort of deep state entrenched bureaucrats, they're glad this guy was let go. That's the good news. Finally, we can agree on something. Now, the bad news is he was let go because he was cooperating with DOGE. And, in fact, he's been now rehired by the team. Let me explain the story of Leland Dudek. We know this story because he posted it on his LinkedIn page. Luke Rosiak over at Daily Wire obtained this now deleted LinkedIn story, and he has confirmed the details. At 4:30 p.m., my boss called me to tell me I had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation, Dudek wrote. They wanted to fire me for cooperating with DOGE. Acting Social Security Commissioner Michelle King, who is now out of a job, at the time, had put this person on administrative leave. He said in the LinkedIn post, I confess I helped DOGE understand SSA, Social Security Administration. I mailed myself publicly accessible documents and explained them to DOGE. I confess I moved contractor money around to add data science resources to my anti-fraud team. Do you understand? This guy was in charge of the anti-fraud team at Social Security. Representatives of the new Trump administration come in and say, hey, we're here to find the fraud. This guy says, oh, well, that's my job. Let me help you. This will be great because I can be better at my job of finding Social Security fraud. And for that, he got laid off. He got fired. He says, I asked where the fat was and is in our contracts, so we can make the right tough choices. I confess I bullied agency executives, shared executive contact information, and circumvented the chain of command to connect DOGE with the people who get stuff done. Everything I have ever done is in service to our country, our beneficiaries, and our agency. Now, Luke Rosiak reached out to Social Security Administration and the White House for comment on this, and they did not get anything at the time he published. Mr. Dudek, who was put on leave by Gina Clemens, Deputy Commissioner for Analytics Review and Oversight, and she's still on the job, by the way. Dudek, a career civil servant, is an example of how there are a few fiscally conscious, longtime government employees and how the Trump administration and DOGE can maximize their impact by joining forces with people who know where the bodies are buried. Think about this for a minute. This guy cooperated and actually worked with the DOGE people to do exactly what he is supposed to do, which is root out fraud. And he got investigated and put on leave because he did his job well. Senator Mike Lee, by the way, or spokesperson for him, said, "I hope we see more of this. There are many good civil servants who have been quietly frustrated for years with politically motivated mismanagement, who possess an encyclopedic knowledge of the problems with their agencies." Well, and this is the point. You know, in the past, whenever we would have a so-called government shutdown story here in Washington, and of course, listen, this is the challenge of doing talk radio here on WMAL in Washington, D.C., is you want to talk about all of these issues in these grand, sweeping, broad categories, right? Federal workers, and everybody around the country can afford to do that. You're the radio, and I'm looking up and down the row here at Radio Row at CPAC, and you got radio talk show hosts in Florida. You got radio talk show hosts in Michigan. You got radio talk show hosts in Indiana. The West Coast people aren't here yet, of course. And they can afford to speak in broad, sweeping terms about federal workers. But when we talk about federal workers, we have to recognize that these are individuals who listen to our programs. These are individuals who have families. These are human beings. They're not just part of a big category. So when you talk about all those people who work at Social Security, well, that could be you, or that could be your neighbor, or that could be the person in the car next to you right now on your commute. And you have to recognize that they're human beings. And so when we talk about, you know, the so-called government shutdown, if Congress can't get a debt deal passed or the debt ceiling raised or a new omnibus bill package, it's like, around the country they'll say, well, screw them. They'll get paid eventually anyway, and that is true. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't help you when you have to make rent and you didn't save enough money and things are tight and, you know, you don't think of yourself as a federal worker. You just think of a guy with a job. All right. So I get all of that. But I can tell you, every single time I do a story about a government shutdown over the past 12 years I've been on WMAL, I will get emails, I will get phone calls, I will get direct messages on social media from these very federal workers who put in the hours every single day. And they will call me, they will email me, and they will say, I could point to 10 people I work with that we don't need right now. We could trim the fat. We can cut expenses. We waste money. All of you who work for the federal government right now, who are part of our audience, and we love you and we respect you, but you know in your hearts that you don't need all of the coworkers that you've got. You know in your hearts, and by the way, I say that because every single person who works for every company knows that on the job you've got some dead weight. You've got some people who cut corners. You've got some people who are just bad at their job. And in any other industry, they end up getting fired, they end up getting laid off, and the company ends up getting more efficient and works better. That's what we've all had to realize and face. Please talk to me about the radio industry and layoffs and people losing their jobs. We've all had to face that, except those federal workers. And so that's why we get excited when we see a story like this. We hear a story about Leland Dudek, who did the right thing at Social Security. For his efforts, he got fired, but now he's been rehired. He's back on the job, and actually, he's the point man. He's now the person leading the fraud effort with DOGE at Social Security Administration, and we love to see it. It's 545 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten in the HadidCarpet.com.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
By the way, while everything's unfolding here on the stage at National Harbor for the conservative movement at the CPAC Conference 2025, Just about 10 miles away on Capitol Hill, there's going to be a pretty big vote. In fact, if they were smart here at CPAC, they should stream it live on the big screen. This would be amazing. The emotional eruption of the audience around 2:30, 3 o'clock this afternoon would be amazing, because that's when the full floor vote should occur for the nomination of Kash Patel as the FBI director. I get emotional just thinking about it. Yeah, like last year, Kash Patel was hanging out with us, doing a segment with us, and just, sort of being Kash Patel, and now he is one vote away from in fact, like 2 CPACs ago down in Orlando when it was still in Florida, I had a very late night with Kash Patel and a handful of people. He's a great guy and friend of the program and friend of law and justice and liberty and accountability. And yesterday he got a huge vote of confidence from Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican of Louisiana, who announced that he will confirm Kash Patel. He cleared a major hurdle on the Senate floor by a 48 to 45 vote to advance that nomination. Now, today there will be a vote to end cloture. That should go according to plan at 10 a.m., I believe, is the timeline on that. And then, without any further ado, by 1:30, they will finally take up the question of Kash Patel as your new director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And like I said, they totally should stream that. I got to look right now. I want to know who's, right around that time, who's going to be on stage, because they should work it into their remarks to just say, oh, and by the way, breaking news, this just happened. Oh, man, that would be amazing. Well, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, will be on stage with Ted Cruz around 4 o'clock. It should be done by then. But you might want to check that out. In fact, that's going to be a with our buddy Ben Ferguson, who's a great radio host and podcaster. He'll be on stage with them, sort of directing things. Right around the time of the vote, well, Speaker Mike Johnson is going to be on stage around 2:50. It's going to be an amazing moment. So that's what we're expecting. Adam Schiff yesterday, by the way, gave remarks in his committee hearing. He said something to the effect of, knowing what we know about Kash Patel, if he gets confirmed, well, we only have ourselves to blame. And he looked terrified. He's got that sort of possum in the headlights look, right? He with his big-ass round eyes, like he's terrified all the time of his own shadow. He's terrified he's going to get caught in his own lies. He's terrified. Well, he's terrified that someone like Kash Patel will become the director of the FBI. Oh, what a glorious moment. So get ready for that. It's going to be an amazing, amazing day, as Kash Patel will be confirmed today, barring any last-second shenanigans. I mean, here's the thing about the Senate. There's always some sort of archaic legislative or protocol, Robert's rules from hell kind of last-minute wrench they can throw into the machinery to delay a vote or to, filibuster or what have you. They may try something like that just to grandstand, but I don't think so. If anything about the Senate Democrats right now, they're a defeated bunch. They know that they can't stop what's going on right now. They know that ultimately Republicans are going to have their way as long as they stick together. And with that extra 3-vote majority they've got, they can even lose your Susan Collins or your Lisa Murkowski or your Mitch McConnell, now apparently part of the resistance, sadly, which is really not a great way for him to end his career. But I don't think even those 3 are against the idea of Kash Patel being the FBI director. Certainly he's qualified, he's energetic, he's ready, and he